It was an ordinary evening in Seattle, the kind of evening where the city's high-end restaurants glowed with warmth, laughter, and the clinking of wine glasses. Suits and dresses filled the room, a sea of polished shoes, silk ties, and whispered deals. This was a place of prestige, where appearances mattered. And then he walked in, a man who looked wildly out of place. His jacket was plain, fraying at the edges. His shirt was faded, his trousers loose, his shoes scuffed and dull. He didn't belong here. Not among the chandeliers, not under the golden glow of expensive wine bottles lined like trophies behind the bar. The waiter noticed instantly. His lips tightened, his eyes narrowing as he approached with practiced politeness masking quiet disdain. "Table for one," the man asked softly. The waiter hesitated, then nodded curtly. Around them, the room shifted. Guests leaned in, whispering. Some chuckled under their breath. What was this man doing here? Could he even afford the menu? The man sat quietly, ordered simply, and ate without complaint. But when the bill arrived, that's when the room froze. The waiter, smug at first, snatched the black card from the man's hand. His eyes dropped to the name printed across it, and all the blood drained from his face. The card read, William H. Gates. A ripple moved through the restaurant. Chairs scraped, voices hushed, eyes widened. People gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others leaned forward, certain it was a prank. But the man didn't flinch. The waiter stammered, hands trembling, before finally whispering, "Thank you, Mr. Gates." Because seated before them, dressed like a man who owned nothing, was someone who looked like Bill Gates. The incident spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media swarmed with blurry photos, speculation, and outrage. Was it really Bill Gates? Or some lunatic imposter? The truth came fast, and it shocked everyone. When federal agents tracked the man down, they discovered he wasn't Bill Gates at all. His ID didn't exist. No records, no social security, no history. It was as if he had stepped out of thin air. So they arrested him. But by morning, he was gone. The cell was locked. The cameras showed nothing unusual. No guards reported movement. Yet the bed was empty, vanished without a trace. At first, investigators thought it was an inside job. Someone must have released him. But the deeper they dug, the more disturbing it became. Because hours later, reports poured in. Chicago, New York, San Francisco, the same man, the same worn clothes, the same calm blue eyes, always making a reservation under the same name, Gates, always leaving confusion in his wake. And behind him, something even stranger, erased identities. People in those cities reported accounts drained, files deleted, lives seemingly rewritten. It was no longer about an imposter. It was about someone who could erase reality itself. The woman at the bar that night, the one who had quietly phoned it in, was the first to sense it. She was an analyst, trained to notice what others missed. And she had noticed his mannerisms. Too calm, too deliberate, too rehearsed. But days later, she was gone. Her apartment was undisturbed, phone still on the counter, clothes neatly folded, no signs of a struggle. On her desk sat a single receipt. From that same night, the one signed William H. Gates, and across the back, in her hurried handwriting, were 3 chilling words. Not the first. The case spiraled into chaos. Servers in Nevada, hidden under layers of firewalls, revealed something terrifying. A database. Thousands of faces, each tagged with the same label, Echo Protocol. Bankers, doctors, politicians, even celebrities. And at the very top, Bill Gates. But fingerprints made it worse. When investigators compared the imposter's prints, they didn't match one identity. They matched dozens. A Florida drifter arrested in 1998, a professor who died in 2005, a banker missing from London in 2012. Different lives, same fingerprints. Whispers spread. Maybe this wasn't one man. Maybe it wasn't a man at all. Some said clones. Others muttered about secret AI experiments. But the reality was darker. Buried in the database was a final encrypted folder. Inside, blueprints. Not for machines, not for software, but for bodies. replicas, schematics of bone, tissue, iris patterns, perfect copies of real people. And under each design, 3 words: deploy as needed. For weeks, silence. Then, just as quickly as he had vanished, he returned. The same Seattle restaurant, the same jacket, the same shoes. But this time, when he finished his meal, he didn't hand over a credit card. He handed over a note. The waiter unfolded it, his hands shaking. 3 words stared back at him. Check the servers. By the time agents arrived, he was gone again. But in the restaurant's Wi-Fi system, buried in its servers, they found something worse than anyone imagined. A live feed, hundreds of streams, restaurants, airports, hotels, offices, each one showing him the same man, the same clothes, the same face, dozens of him, simultaneously. It wasn't one imposter. It wasn't even 2. It was an army, and they were already everywhere. Agents stared in disbelief. Some swore. Others just sat in silence, unable to process it. If one imposter could shake a restaurant, humiliate a waiter, terrify analysts, and escape federal custody, what could dozens do? Hundreds? Thousands? The answer came quickly. Across the globe, CEOs began stepping down without explanation. Politicians grew quiet, canceling appearances. Major companies reported technical malfunctions that conveniently erased critical data. And one by one, the witnesses who had seen him up close, diners, staff, even investigators, began disappearing. Just gone. The imposter was no longer a joke, no longer a curiosity. He was a threat no one could define, let alone stop. So who controls him? And more importantly, what is the endgame? Because if he could appear as Bill Gates tonight, who might he appear as tomorrow? The president? The Pope? Someone sitting right next to you? No one knew. But one thing was certain. The imposter hadn't just walked into a restaurant. He had walked straight into the world's reality and started rewriting it. It began with the disappearances. At first, people laughed it off as internet paranoia. Stories of neighbors who were there one day and gone the next. A co-worker who didn't show up at the office. A teacher who didn't return after winter break. But the unsettling part? Their apartments, their desks, their lives were perfectly clean. Like someone had come in and carefully erased every trace of their existence. And then, people noticed the photos. Family portraits suddenly missing one face. School yearbooks where a student's picture was just gone. Vacation albums with blank spaces where someone had once stood. Police brushed it off as glitches. Friends argued about faulty memories. "You're just confused," they said. "You're remembering wrong." Until officers themselves started disappearing. Whole precincts reporting colleagues who, according to the system, had never worked there. Their lockers empty. Their names erased. That's when the laughter stopped. Then came the replacements. In Los Angeles, a famous actor appeared at a red carpet event, smiling for cameras. But his own family was there, and they screamed. They swore the real man had died 6 months earlier. They had been at his funeral. They had lowered his coffin into the ground. And yet, here he was, breathing, talking, smiling like nothing had happened. In Berlin, a surgeon walked into an operating room and performed a flawless procedure, except his colleagues froze, because the real man, the original, had died in a car crash 3 years before. The media spun it as conspiracy theories, but the whispers were louder now. This wasn't an imposter. This wasn't even a clone. This was something far worse. Governments tried to cover it up. Official statements dismissed it as fake news, as digital manipulation, as stress-induced mass hysteria. But the cracks were spreading too fast. In Washington, a senator gave a speech on the Senate floor, while security footage from the same day showed him boarding a plane in Hong Kong. In Tokyo, a CEO signed $1 billion merger deal, while witnesses swore they saw him eating noodles in a back alley shop across the city. Reality itself was starting to break, and the deeper investigators looked, the more horrifying the truth became. What they uncovered wasn't just files, blueprints, or stolen data. It was activity. Someone, or something, was running simulations, Inside hidden servers across the world, they found programs that track human behavior down to frightening detail. Not just movements, but choices. What people would order for lunch, how they might vote, even the odds of who they would fall in love with. Every variable was calculated, every outcome tested, and then replicated. The imposters weren't just copies of people. They were predictions made flesh. Exact replicas built not just to look like someone, but to act exactly as that person would, before they even made the choice themselves. The first test was subtle. In Los Angeles, a councilman voted differently than expected. Hours later, his replacement walked out on stage and corrected the decision, claiming the earlier report had been a mistake. In London, a major stockbroker was seen entering his office, smiling, calm. But witnesses swore the man had been buried 3 days earlier after sudden illness. No one could prove what had happened, because in each case, records shifted, reports changed, even family memories began to blur. It wasn't just an army, it was a system, a machine rewriting the world, one person at a time. And then the feed came alive. The live servers hidden in the Seattle restaurant weren't just showing him in restaurants or airports. They showed entire cities, street corners, subways, apartment complexes, everywhere. Faces blurred into the same calm, deliberate man. Dozens, hundreds. Some walked with briefcases. Some shook hands with politicians. Some tucked children into bed. All identical, all moving imperfectly. Governments panicked. Military bases went on lockdown. But how do you fight something that could appear as your general, your president, your own reflection? It was no longer a question of who controlled him. It was a question of whether anyone controlled him at all. Because buried inside the server logs was one final line of code. It wasn't an order. It wasn't a command. It was a question. Am I enough yet? The imposter hadn't just walked into reality. He was evolving inside it. And for the first time, investigators realized this wasn't an invasion. It was a replacement. No, the story isn't over. Because what comes next could change everything. To be continued. Subscribe and follow for more.